أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وبه نستعين الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم وفرج نبيهم الكريم. There are two items which I have promised which I want to discuss and open up today inshallah, and we'll conclude the session today with just these two items. The first item is the promise of talking about the distinguishment between the angels and what Shaytan had done, right? In terms of the position, showing the humility of the angels and the lack thereof in Shaytan, the arrogance of the devil. Okay, divine humility versus demonic arrogance, opposing traits with opposing actions and opposing reactions, and then hence opposing interactions. Okay. The second item was a question that one of the individuals had asked, right, which was in terms of when life phases change, and as couples go forth and life phases change, then there is a change in the primary need as well of individuals, and that change in primary need in the appearance of it really, right, is where kind of things are observed differently. We'll talk about that as well. So these are the two main items we're going to discuss today, inshallah. Having said that, the first item that I'm opening up and talking about is the positions of the angels and how they went about and displayed really humility. If you notice that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking to the angels and He tells to them that, hey, I'm about to appoint a Khalifa on the earth, right? And the angels are talking about bloodshed and they're talking about fasad, right? There's no mention of the angels bringing this data point from the jinns, by the way, in the Holy Quran. There is an explicit response to the question with regards to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the creation of what ends up becoming humans, mankind. Okay? Free-willed creatures bound in the material realm with blood in them. You find another one that has intellect as well, let me know. We have only one such type, it's called humans. Okay. So when it comes time to humanity being created, the angels come and oppose significantly. Okay, but they oppose with the sense of position. They're saying that basically these traits don't fit the position of Khalifatullah. You see that? Their primary critique, their primary questioning, their primary response, right, although driven from love, is stemming from the understanding of a position, that the sanctity of the position, right, how does this now couple with the appearance of deficiencies in the person? You see that? In terms of Shaytan, he goes towards the comparison between two persons. He says the deficiencies of person Adam and the quote-unquote apparent efficiencies of the person Iblis. You see that? And then he goes further and looks towards the positions and said that, you know, my position, the creature of fire, is better than the creature of clay. You see that? So the order in which things are even approached are opposites. The angels are approaching positions, right? And then when they recognize the sacredness and the absolute niceness of the person, they submit actually to Adam. See that? After the response and so on and so forth. Shaytan has flipped the equation. He starts with deficiencies of the person and then goes towards then justification by means of declaring inaccuracies in terms of position. Shaytan isn't able to see the grandeur and the niceness of Hazrat Adam because he's occupied in the person. He's already made a decision. This person is less than me. The angels are going from a generic and generalized understanding of positions and are looking for now the actualization or validation of that in the person. And hence they're approaching the scenario in a way which allows them, which enables for Allah to give them the opportunity to now what? Assess. And He does it in a very unique way. I'm not opening that right now. Very unique way. It will take approximately 6 hours to open that uniqueness, at my understanding at least. There's more than that for sure. So if you're reading that particular verse, understand that there's depth beyond depth beyond depth. But in all of it, you can see this point, that opening and that prescription that Allah displays to the angels an opportunity now to even attain the position of khilafah, right? By displaying to them by arada the asma. He displays to them the asma. Asma meaning now a symbol which represents. As Sayyid Kamil is reciting somewhere Majlis, Sayyid Kamil, the name is a representative of the nafs, correct? So, and a representation for those individuals who are not able to kind of, let's say, perceive the face. You see that? People who are not able to kind of perceive the face, they know only the name, right? That name becomes a representation. If you saw my face but you never knew my name, my picture is a better representative of my physical person. You see that? A name becomes a representation for sometimes those blind who are not able to see the face. You can hear the name perhaps. Okay, there's more to say there. When it comes time to the angels are given the opportunity because they come from an assessment of positions. Okay, Shaytan is not given that same capacity because he initiates that difference from a difference and bias of persons. Okay, so therein lies the issue with the family unit too. Many a times we look at the deficiencies of our spouse, the person, right? And we go back towards ourselves and say, how can this person be that position? You understand that? The opposite, the divine way, the humble way of looking at is that I attribute my respects and my kind of interactions the way Allah, my owner, wants to the position, right? And then I go to assess that is there any limitations or filters that the person demands that I should also place to make sure I don't hurt myself, all within the framework of Allah. You see that? So I obey respectfully to the position of parents, let's say. Then I recognize that is it the case that my parents are accurate when they want from me what they ask? So let's say, please pick me up at 3 o'clock, let's say. Are my parents the persons now, right? When they say 3 o'clock, do they want me to come at 3 o'clock, or they actually want me to come 2:30 and be there and assist them? But the deficiencies or efficiencies or whatever labels you want to place there, you're assessing in the personage, but the decision of how you're going to interact with respect and humility is based predominantly on the position, and it supersedes it too. Like you going in have already set the mode in which how you will go in. You see that? Going into that interaction, you've already set the modality of how you're going to interact with humility. That is essential. That's very, very critical. As opposed to the other side. The other side goes in with aggression because there's a presupposed convolution of the deficiencies of the person they're dealing with, right? It goes in with aggression and then justifies it by saying such a person shouldn't be in that position. Now, God made a mistake. You see that? It's very important. The order of things, the interaction between the angels and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Iblis and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. These are essential things to understand. We go further. The last point, as I mentioned, is the point of physical intimacy and emotional intimacy in the family unit. We have a very unique coupling between these two in the shape of water and food. The shahwa All four of these things are interconnected. If you could say the water and the food are symbols of, right, their inner aspects, the physical intimacy being linked to water, the emotional intimacy being linked to food. There are lots of parables here that can be made. I'll make some of them here, the rest will leave to your imaginations and your intellects, inshallah, and I'll build from there in further sessions. To cook a good meal requires an excessive amount of time to prepare things properly, let things kind of simmer and so on and so forth, and produce the byproduct, enjoy it appropriately. Any part, if something wasn't cooked properly in the end aspects of things, it is felt, and it leaves its position and mark. Emotional intimacy is derived from an intricate connection and experience between two individuals. See that? Physical intimacy is simplistic in its nature. Turn the tap on, drink water, thirst is quenched. See that? The magnitude of the water, large or small, right? That in of itself gets rid of the thirst in a unique way. With food, you go to a five-star Michelin restaurant, it's not the quantity that increases or decreases, the qualitative measure is what determines a five-star Michelin restaurant. You see that? In terms of water, the quenching of the thirst, typically the quantitative measurement is predominant. In the measurement of food, the qualitative measure is predominant. And you'll notice that too in the physical intimacy department, the quantitative aspect is substantial. And in the emotional aspect, the qualitative impact is substantial. Not to say that quantity is not needed or the other place quality is not needed. Understand this, that the primary pillar. See that? And Shaitan flips the equation. Men will assume that providing a large level of quantity time with family while not working on the quality of it all should justify emotional intimacy, and it never does, right? It almost never does. You see that? I said never, then I said almost never. The reason for that is some ladies overcompensate and recognize the deficiencies of the spouse, and out of their grace accept that which little is offered. Allah have mercy on them. See that? The vice versa for men when it comes to the physical intimacy department. Women will sometimes go towards that particular area and think that the qualitative display once in a while substantiates the lack of quantity in that department, while the measure is flipped. You see that? The measure is flipped. So both of these are quite uniquely linked. There is This is the tip of the iceberg. There is a lot more and a lot more and a lot more to be said with this analogy in of itself. But I will not go further than that. I'll conclude by saying that when it comes time to the phases of development of mankind, as men and women develop in different phases, the appearance of something that predates it, that the zuhur of the huzur, right? The appearance of those particular needs is different, right? At the teenager years and the early marital years and in the elderly years and so on and so forth, the appearance of those things is impacted by a plethora of things: diet, exercise, environments, inner workings of the nafs, right? And so on and so forth. But the appearance of it is different for each genders, right? Sometimes the demand of intimacy decreases not because of the decrease of its actual want, but the decrease of its kind of uh, display. A man feels that, for example, in his elderly years, he's not able to kind of uh, um, substantiate the needs that he might feel because of an imbalance in food and diet, and an imbalance in what they're watching and so on and so forth, right? Na'udhu. And that particular individual might have a higher need in his elderly life, but still not demand as much because he recognizes that the demand of it would be leaving him lacking because of his lack of ability. Vice versa. Okay, in a different capacity altogether. So when it comes to phases of mankind, the phase specifically talked about is women after a certain age, let's say, right? If to recognize that the need of individuals is dependent upon multiple factors, but yes, the display of it in that phase will be substantially different because the phase is now different, right? It's not one item, but a networked item that can be used to either increase or decrease that particular need and attune it to its non chaotic form, its calm form, its actual purified level, right? And you will find that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has provided enough rizq in every couple, it's His job, to alleviate the natural occurrence of the need, not the israf and chaotic levels. What this means, inshallah, later sessions will cover. I've taught this in other classes extensively, but inshallah, in the family dars, I'll be opening this up in the future. For now, may Allah accept these small sessions from us and allow them as a means and a mechanism for toppling Shaitan's mischief in the family unit.